Okay, Colonel Dick, you are good to go.
Thank you very much, Bill. Greatly appreciate it. Welcome all. This is a meeting of the Executive Committee of the Board of Visitors of the Virginia Military Institute, convened pursuant to the public notice that was issued, which was timely issued last week. Members present include myself, Michael Dick, Ernie Edgar, Lester Johnson, Damon Williams. Mr. Hall, I do not believe is currently able to join. If he is, we'll notice that in a when he comes on. The purpose of this meeting, of this executive committee meeting, is to conduct those items of business identified on the agenda. This constitutes the first item on that agenda, which is the welcome, and I'll provide some additional comments in just a moment, but then we'll move to the superintendent to give us an update and move into the 6-year plan submission items that the superintendent and his staff has prepared. There may be another item of business or so we'll hit at the end of this meeting. So the first thing to start this, the purpose of this meeting, of course, is to discuss the 6-year plan submission. Just want for everybody's, to refresh everyone's memory, is that pursuant to the Code of Virginia, specifically Title 23.1, public institutions of higher education are required to submit a 6-year plan. In every odd numbered year, it's a pretty thorough and detailed plan, and every even number year, it's a amendment or affirmation of that prior submitted plan. And that submission that has to take place is where the Institute of Higher Education has to submit it, I should say, by July 1st of each year. Then the state has to get back to the institution by September 1st with comments. And by October 1st, the plan has to be, or the affirmation of it or amendments to it have to be finalized and submitted. So where we are today is in that first part, is to assess and look at the material that was provided in the reading material for this, or the read ahead material for this meeting, which constitutes the identification of priorities by VMI staff and superintendent, and to discuss those priorities, to assess whether or not we concur with them or would suggest modifying them. Let the Institute then run with that, add the numbers that constitute the details for that, that will then go on to the state. And in the fall, we will get that back and we will review it and see what comments the state has from there. General Clark, is that an accurate overview of what we need to do?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, so that's where we are now. That's the purpose of this meeting. I'll turn it over to the superintendent now for his update and comments on these priorities.
Thank you, sir. I've got 3 items here. I'll just wrap up the end of the academic year, give a brief update on where we stand for the class of 27 plus 3, and then details about our on-winning conference that we're going to execute next week. So first of all, year-end activities. We graduated a week ago, 256 graduates, 140 of which commissioned in the Armed Forces of the United States for a 54% average, which is about the standard for the last several years. We had a great commissioning speaker, and General Chris Mahoney, the Vice Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff, and then the Governor of Virginia was the commencement speaker. Both have received tremendous accolades from both cadets and parents and reflections that have been given to me personally or by email, text message. The parades, both the Memorial Parade and the Change of Command Parade, were well done. We had perfect weather. It was a great experience for all, and it concluded a really good academic year on the right note. For the class of 27 plus 3, We currently have 557 deposits. So we're cautiously optimistic about the size of this class. Right now, we have to weather the Federal Service Academies poaching people who are committed to our program by theirs. They're probably on their wait list, and we've accepted them, and they've deposited money to attend in the fall. So we just got to weather the service academies who will start their, Beast Barracks or Brigade summer session here in the next 3 weeks. And, the whole team's priority is to continue to reach out to everyone we have deposits with to make sure that we can answer any of their questions or solidify their commitment. It's not uncommon in this day and age for a young person to give deposits to several schools, and they know they lose it if they pull off of it. But the fact is, they'd rather have a boat space than not have one, so they kind of cover their bets, so to speak. So we're just seeing how this works out. The student transition program, which will be starting here in a week or two, we've got 160 reservations for that, which is a good number. That's higher than it was last year. And again, those cadets do not attrit. They attrit at a far lower rate than non-STP cadets. And that's basically you take one class, and we have a PT program for them. But they given an opportunity to get in shape. They get a lay of the land here. They understand the campus, so they don't get lost the first several weeks. It does de-stress the environment a bit for them because of that. And then they get their feet wet as far as the transition from high school to college level academic classes. Finally, the On Winning Symposium, it will begin on the 3rd of June. Runs from the 3rd through the 5th of June. We have a strong lineup of proven speakers. The purpose of this conference is to create a baseline standard across every cadet athlete and every cadet athletic team and the department writ large. It's also a problem framing session that will begin the process of our athletic strategic plan, which we haven't had. No one can produce one for me. And so we will, this will be a good problem framing session to begin the process that will produce one of those by the beginning of the fall. Like I said earlier, we have a strong lineup of proven speakers. We have General Neller, the 37th Commandant of the Marine Corps, Dr. Ben Freakley, who's a mental performance coach, Irvin Jasper, who's coached at football at Annapolis for over 25 years. He's currently the quarterback coach at the Naval Academy. Mike Etor, who is a former CEO and is now a CEO leadership coach, but he was a long-serving Marine and a Division I collegiate wrestler. Leonard Hamilton, former Florida State head basketball coach. And then the keynote at the end of the week will be Urban Meyer, 3-time national championship head football coach. So we look forward to this week. We've spent a lot of time putting this week together and look forward to the execution of it. With that, we'll transition this to Dallas Clark, who can go over the priorities of the 6-year plan.
Thank you, sir. And Colonel Dick, thank you very much for the preamble and just helping everybody have the larger perspective of the 6-year plan process. The 6-year plan, just as another point of clarification, provides it's our plans that include information about institutional strategies, our projected costs, tuition and fees, financial aid, economic development, and other timely topics that from time to time will be inserted in. So most recently it's been another tab was added in the template measuring impacts from the federal budget impacts. And so this template that we feel pretty standard, but from time to time, if there's a specific piece that the state's interested in, they may add another tab, getting some larger information from everybody. VMI's 6-year plan aligns with two pieces that I think are relevant. It will align clearly with the Institute's strategic plan, the vision that the superintendent, the Board of Visitors is laying out. And further, it also needs to speak and correspond with the higher education plan for the Commonwealth of Virginia, which is produced by Chev, which is entitled Developing Tomorrow's Talent, the Virginia Plan for Higher Education. It could probably be best summarized in 3 words: ready, responsive, and relevant. And it's really the process of learning to leading. And as you all know, General Jumper is the head of Chev, but led by a very talented staff and team working higher education topics. But this is the latest iteration of the strategic plan for higher education in Virginia. So our initiatives will nest with both the Institute plan as well as the plan as produced by the Commonwealth. The plans are submitted to a group commonly referred to as the OP6. The OP6 is comprised of the Secretary of Finance, the Secretary of Education, the Director of Planning and Budget, the Staff Director of House Appropriations, the Staff Director of Senate and Finance Appropriations, and the Executive Director of Chev. So that just gives you the framework of the composition. The document itself, when you see it in its final form, will have a part 1 and a part 2. Which is a narrative as well as the Excel spreadsheets. And then that's the entities that receive it and review it and provide the comment back to VMI. And as Colonel Dick mentioned, this is an even numbered year, so this is an amend or a firm year. I also want to highlight that Chev compiles and gathers from us routinely vast amounts of information and data, which is all compiled onto the Chev website. And you all have heard the term the fact packs. And this is a whole bunch of drop-down information of a whole bunch of other metrics of data that we submit. That's you can look it up for all the institutions, but look it up for VMI. And so that data, that longitudinal data, is also an informational component of the development of our plans and really measuring ourselves against our peers, again, as well as against ourselves, and how we're going and setting the strategic direction of the Institute. The part 1 data summary will include, when you see it in its in the later forms, will have information about fall enrollment, tuition and fees, and then tuition and other income. It'll also show some details about expenses, what we expect to see in terms of new expenses with salary increases, employer health insurance, utilities and insurance, contingencies. And also there's an interest from the state that wants to keep track of or get information about tuition that we receive that is then turned around and used for financial aid. And so there's some information there that is also part of the template. The part 2 is really the narrative. It provides the narrative, the more explained details about each of the initiatives and the elements of our plan, starting with the mission and purpose of the Institute, working on down to these specifics. So that's just, and we talked about the timeline already with this meeting today. We will submit this plan on the 1st of July in draft. That's OP6 will review it, send comments back. We'll all get a chance collectively as the entire board and the staff to look at that one more time before we make a final submittal in that 1 October with a final submission to DLAS, Department of Legislative Services, on 1 December. With that as a preamble, I thought I'm going to just move through these specific requests and just highlight that these are themes. We are capturing the ideas and thoughts we've had that have come, things we've worked on in the past, we were not successful with for any number of reasons. New pieces that have come out of the strategic planning process and pieces coming from the board and the superintendent, as well as other initiatives that are out there. We've got them organized into 5 themes, 5 priorities. They are not in priority order. As we continue to build the narratives and build the details out behind these, we'll provide more specifics, including specifics on numbers and priorities. And the main objective today is to ensure the board sees the themes and that we've captured the key elements that support where the Institute is going. And so the first one is the Center for Teaching and Learning Initiative. This establishes a centralized faculty development instructional excellence center focused on teaching innovation, emerging technologies, curriculum development, and cadet learning outcomes. And you've seen there in the narrative of what that's getting after and trying to. This is an initiative pushed by the dean that really, if you just put it, said very, very simply, we're focused on and have an initiative in place to ensure that our faculty are geared with resources and tools to help them to be the best instructors possible. And so that creates this Center for Teaching and Learning initiative. Before I move on, are there any questions about that initiative before I go to number 2? The second one is the Forging Fit Leaders. This was an existing initiative. We had this in the last session as a request. This develops a comprehensive cadet fitness, resilience, and wellness program, integrated physical readiness, mental resilience, leadership development, and lifelong wellness. We currently have some of these initiatives that we've already jump-started on and are doing. For instance, the second bullet, we talk about the nutritionist position. We have partnered with our food service vendor, Parkhurst. They are partnering with us. They are covering half the cost. We're covering the other half to get that. So that nutritionist position will start here this month and bringing that person on board. But on the longer term, it's about building out the funding stream to support this comprehensive initiative. Physical readiness programming, the nutritionist position that's advising the core and overall nutrition and well-being, partnered and closely linked with our food service vendors, so there's good alignment and coordination. Human performance initiatives. This is coming from the Human Performance and Wellness Department, and their expertise overlaying into this. Biometric devices that measure the overall sleep and heart rate and other elements of the cadets' overall fitness, tracking a whole host of biometric pieces, which we're still developing and looking at the different models of what that would look like. Resilience and wellness support, equipment modernization, and this is really just overall and looks to enhance the cadet performance. We talk about this frequently about with the cadets and their overall development as they work through the academic year. For those that are competing athletics, that makes a logical sense. But for those that are going off into armed services and their summer training and other pieces, just ensure that they are being very, very cognizant of their overall development themselves as a fit leader. And so that is the description of there. And this, as I mentioned, this is an existing initiative. We're going to come back again if it turns out that it's not in this next budget. Budget's not been passed, so it's out there pending. It may come through. If it doesn't, we'll press forward with it. Any questions on number 2 on Forging Fit Leaders?
Hey, Dallas, this is Ernie. I couldn't get off mute fast enough going back to number 1. So I apologize. With regard to the teaching and learning initiative, as I understand it, that's really aimed more at the faculty in terms of increasing capability there, as opposed to if we've got young people coming in who may not have been, up to the standard of college prep, getting them ready. Is that a fair assessment?
That is exactly correct, sir. This is really making our teachers, our professors, the best professor they can possibly be. So, our professors, our faculty come with these fantastic education background, terminal degrees in their field, in these nice, wonderful, small classroom sizes. And this is just, hey, are there things we should be doing to make sure that they're given the best opportunity, the best skill set to make sure they're just becoming the best professor they can possibly be. So it's an investment in our faculty.
Got it. And just on the athletic piece, I'm loath to quote West Point graduates sometimes, but the MacArthur quote about on the fields of friendly strife and producing leaders. I mean, that's been our model too, like the academy from the beginning. I think what I think is important to emphasize is that this isn't just about D1. In fact, if anything, it's more about the non-D1 cadets who are nevertheless athletes, whether they're in intramurals or just staying fit. And I couldn't be more supportive of this piece. I think it's one of the critical things that the Commandant's been pushing for the last couple of years, and it's something that a lot of our alumni have observed and would like to kind of get back up on the curve a little bit.
Mr. Egger, thank you, sir. That's exactly right. This is not an athletic-driven initiative. In fact, there's work with our food service vendor. There's a number of um, nutritional-driven activities they're doing that some people think, oh, that's maybe some schools are just doing that just for the athletes. These are pieces we're bringing right into the dining hall, into Crozet Hall, that all cadets have access to during that full complement of that food service daytime from 7 a.m. until 8:30. So this is about the core. This is about ensuring as they head off to summer training or head off in their degrees in their professions, they're as fit of a leader as they can be going forward. It will have a secondary complement to the athletics.
Yeah, if I could to add on to that, Dallas, Ernie, yeah, this is all about leadership, and it's really mostly focused on our commissioning cadets. They will come into a service no matter where they go that has a program of what the Army calls holistic health and fitness, H2F, but it's everything from how you sleep, how you eat, how you work out, how you recover to basically be the best version of yourself. So these programs are already stood up. This is about a 15-year, 20-year effort on the behalf of the Department of War. It started with the multiple back-to-back-to-back deployments we all did during the global war on terror and how that was degrading the force. And this was an effort to try to see if they could mitigate the stress on the force with, better nutrition, better sleep, better wellness practices, better fitness practices, and all that's kind of bundled into one program. Now, I've had a catbird seat in my last job to evaluate some of these things from the 3-star level in the Marine Corps. And, from my perspective, the service that's got it right is the United States Army. So we are the Army's H2F folks are coming down here toward the third week of July. And in between there, we're going to send, on their recommendation, we're going to send some folks down to North Georgia because they believe they have the best senior military college program currently. And so we're going to see what they're doing, what we can learn from them, get the H2F folks here because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. And then we'll see where the capability gaps exist between what we're currently doing, what we have planned to be done, and the program of the future. And we will outlay these things over the course of the next 5 years to fully implement this science into every aspect of the Corps. Somebody who's fitter, gets better sleep, is better prepared to take an exam, better prepared to conduct an athletic event, better prepared to conduct military training. And so that's what we're trying to do. We have a pilot program that's going to start with STP this summer. We're borrowing equipment from Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and biomechanically testing every STP cadet. So we'll have a version of how they do certain events. We'll measure all of their bones, so determine whether one leg's longer than the other. If it is, we can give them orthopedics to mitigate that, so because they'd be more prone to injury. So we're leveraging all of that. It really has. I mean, the athletic programs will be a corollary beneficiary of a program that's designed for everyone in the Corps.
Yeah, like I said, I couldn't be more supportive of this. History tells us that when commanders are fit, they make better decisions. And at the end of the day, that's what we're after, whether you're in uniform or in the civilian world. So sorry to take so much time, but I think this is great.
I think if we were to line these up in a priority order, this would be among the top, if not the top priority of the superintendent, as this sort of gets prioritized, this forging fit leaders piece for all the reasons we've stated. We would also look at explore the feasibility of securing funding for this from the state. Obviously, there's general funds, but there's also unique military activities funding, UMA, and this may prove an opportunity for us to secure funding through the new UMA budget line item, which we obviously share that with the other senior military college here in Virginia, with Virginia Tech. The number 3, which is 21st Century Learning and Operations Modernization Initiative, this gets at overall modernization of the academic, operational, and technological infrastructure necessary to support contemporary higher education delivery and institutional effectiveness. And so one component of this in your read ahead was the 21st century classrooms and laboratories. That was an existing request in this last session. We may prove to be successful in that, may not. We'll see where that goes. But we did have this element of providing a framework and an upgrades into the academic space to just provide what we've defined as a 21st century classroom. Far more equipped with technology to bring into the classroom speakers through technology, or to export the classroom into other places as the case may be. But smart classroom modernization, STEM laboratory upgrades, taking a look at our technology refresh cycles and hybrid learning capabilities. Specifically, this hybrid piece works well to support some of these other initiatives as it relates to cadets that may be away from post, supporting some of these government relations initiatives, which is another piece we'll get to. So how can the classroom really support some of these extra activities that we may be asking and calling upon the cadets to do? We also have in this the sustainment of our facilities. APPA is the Physical Plan Administrators, the Association of Physical Plan Administrators, that outlines a standard of care for a facility. And we would like to get, we're probably sitting at somewhere between 4 to 3. We'd like to go closer to 2, which is a higher level of maintenance and care for a facility and its overall upkeep. Obviously, that has a head count component to it. Suffice to say, there are some existing positions that VMI is looking to backfill as a result of other advancements in the plant that have occurred where we've not been able to capture the necessary trades and housekeeping folks to support those facilities. So this one is a part of trying to catch up and gather the people that we need, but secondly, take that a step further to just enhance the care and the level of standard for the facilities. Obviously, getting after our deferred maintenance, the backlog there, and then operational equipment modernization. And the third component, this part was not included in this last year. It's a new component, which is the modernization of our Ellucian enterprise system. So our system that manages the general ledger on the accounting, it manages the financial aid, admissions, registrar with the grades and all the faculty. So it's our enterprise software system. It's a commonly used in higher education, is Ellucian. That is our current provider. We want to make a migration from that into their cloud version, or what they're calling their SaaS version, that gives us more capability. It puts the platform onto the modern ways in which they're putting that particular software together. It does eliminate some of our specific customization, which is specific to VMI. We are still going to be able to capture that customization for things like specials and demerits and things which we work differently. But by getting back to their more custom model, it's going to allow for a better utilization of the metadata. And so they're building their system around that to make it a more informative and better tool. But our customizations are probably going to move to some other ways. So there's a pretty significant price to make this this upgrade in the Ellucian system. And so this as part of this 21st century learning is also, will be integrating this, a request for this Ellucian upgrade. So any questions about the 21st century? Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the Ellucian thing, we're currently running our own server farm. I mean, we could be the only person in the Western world still doing that, but we need to migrate our data to the cloud. We need to create a single data lake, so to speak, and then we can integrate the data across multiple platforms. So, for instance, the benefit of our retention software, which is an Ellucian product, in a stovepipe, you've got to physically connect. But in this process, it will be seamless across the internet. It's like what the military calls one pane of glass. So if I see somebody that is struggling demerit wise, but he's also struggling in the classroom. Everyone can see that. And then earlier intervention with a particular cadet may be able to retain a cadet, where if you just let that play out over a semester, or the commandant works on the demerits and the dean works, there could be a holistic and a health measure there too, that over time with biometric devices, we get that incorporated into this dashboard. And then you can start seeing, hey, they're not sleeping, their heart rate's elevated, and there's a lot of other things that will trip before the decision to, hey, I'm out of here, I can't take it anymore. And when we have the means to intervene and we have the means to help, far greater than was ever the case when Ernie, you and I were cadets. But the hard part is you can be late to need if you don't see the trends earlier when you can make a difference. And so that's what all of this is designed to do, partially, and basically bring us into the 21st century. Over.
Any questions about this initiative? Okay, the number 4 is the experiential learning. This I would probably put, it's one of our top priorities as well, right with the Forging Fit Leaders, is this experiential learning, more commonly referred to as an internships, but experiential learning takes all sorts of forms and functions, not just the pure definition of an internship. Civic Service and Career Pathways Initiative. So this is looking at expanding the capabilities internal to VMI that provides for greater opportunities for cadets to get involved in internships. Now that involves oftentimes cadets can get the internship, but you put them in a place like Northern Virginia, and like I got the job, but gosh, housing and transportation become prohibitive. Are there ways in which we can get some dollars associated with supporting some of those types of needs to put the cadets in their internship? So that's just an example of those internships, those stipends and scholarships, and what they work to do to facilitate their access into the experiential learning. There's undergraduate research support. We have, and you've heard the superintendent talk about this General Assembly Fellows Program. So this is having cadets that are embedded in and working in the General Assembly, working with members, building and strengthening the Institute's not only relationships, but our reputation. And obviously that has a cost of putting them in Richmond for the 45 or the 60 days. And that sort of gets back to these 21st century classrooms of facilitating where needed the cadets' continued participation classroom back here on post. But so this includes the General Assembly Fellowship Program, looking at ways to enhance and expand the study abroad scholarships and experiential learning for travel support. As you know, some of those for us include language immersion programs, specifically like with Arabic and pieces like that line up closely with the commissioning mission. There's employer, federal agency, and public sector partnership development. So we've had lots of discussions about not only do we want cadets going into commissioning, but we want a larger percentage of them going into government service, and the building and development and cultivation of those relationships and support for that. Career readiness, security clearance preparation, and career placement support. As you know, sometimes these clearances, getting into some agencies, those are things we really need to start in their 3rd class year and start working their way forward. So this is really starting to get the funding mechanisms, the people, the process in place to really put ourselves on a trajectory for success and placement into these fields that are highly valuable relative to the Institute's mission. As I mentioned, the barriers on transportation, housing, professional attire, we've worked some of that now, but we would like to obviously to expand that. Internships, and then we've also got the quality enhancement plan, which is tied to our SACS COC reaccreditation. The dean and his team are working through a comprehensive quality enhancement plan that gets after this experiential learning. And obviously, it's going to have some dollars associated with it implementing that plan, and so we'd want to integrate that scope into this particular request. And then obviously, this ties into also the support for the national security minor. This is a big one, and this is a good example of a type of a theme that could be broken out into 2 or 3 different requests, depending as we start to get the numbers attached to these and think about how do we position them. Some of them may make sense to go as a standalone piece. Some may make sense to go together as a larger initiative. But so I just highlight these are the themes that captures these elements, but just recognize we're showing you 5. By the time you see the plan, there may be 6 or 7, there may be 10. And you can see how some of these are some pretty big pieces that could get broken out separate as a standalone initiative for funding. Any questions on number 4? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Dallas, what's the demand signal like? What do you base that on to say that there is this big demand for going into national security issues and intelligence and federal service, and that where's that?
What's that coming from? That's coming from a mindset from us that we had in Vision 2039 a 70% commission rate, and we've been very, very strong at delivering the somewhere between the 50 and 60%. And I think we've just sort of come back and thought through that in a different way. They said, well, listen, 70% is a good number. We know it's a pretty good number relative to those that commission and those that want to go into some type of government service. So this is getting back to our core mission about the citizen soldier component, undergirding and providing like support into the overall infrastructure and employment lines of government service. And so trying to get into these agencies obviously requires legwork, coordination, oftentimes years in advance preparation. So the demand signal for us is what we want to be able to articulate is a strong propensity for service to our nation. It could be in the armed services. It could also be just as equally in some other type of government service. General Furness, is there anything you'd like to elaborate further on that, sir? And you're muted.
Yes, sir. So right now, our largest major field of study is international studies, IS. It's got the largest number of cadets of any major field. You couple that with a robust modern language department, and you got all the makings for a good, preset to go into not only the State Department, but all of the IC, the intelligence community. Our new next year's leader in resident is a former CIA officer who's got a lot of other leadership talents outside of the agency, but he's going to be the leader in residence. I've sat down with several current and former IC members who are going to try to help develop a pathway. Think of it as kind of if you want to be in the DIA, CIA, or any one NSA, any of the fields in the IC, we would have tracks on how to get there, identify you early because it takes 2 years to get a security clearance. So you could do in between second and first class year, you could do a internship with one of these agencies that would then help you get selected upon graduation or prior to graduation. So you graduate, boom, and launch into that field. Several of these are graduates that we're talking to try to come up with the best way to do that. They are trying right now to get me a meeting with the current director of national intelligence or the director of Central Intelligence Agency to kind of set the stage for this. And so it would be if you're entering NSA, it would be something in the EE major, computer, physics, boom, language, and then you're viable for a pathway into that. And so we would be trying to work with the IC, work with members of the IC and graduates to come up with this kind of mentorship, more systematic pipeline into that field, that profession, so to speak, and set our cadets up for success in it.
Well, thank you, General. What I'm looking for is, it's one thing for us to want to do that and offer that for the cadets. It's another thing to assess whether or not that's what the cadets are leaning towards and wanting. And you answered that with the percentage of international studies majors or the large number of folks there. So, and I'm very interested in national security law dimension. So That's why I raised that question, but thank you very much. That's all I got.
Yes, sir.
Good question from my side. A couple of iterations ago with our ROTC department, there were a couple of the professors pushing for a military leadership minor, which other schools will offer their students who take ROTC, and maybe with another class or two, they would come out with that minor, and it was an extra credential that would be competitive in the job market more broadly. My question, I guess, is the national security minor pulling on that ROTC piece that a non-commissioning cadet still nevertheless has to take 4 years of, to provide that competitive advantage in as Soup said, in the IC market space, and or those two different thoughts that use similar words, I guess is my question.
I would think, I know we're going to stand up a Department of Leadership here in the CLE, because we're going to offer a degree in it. So obviously offering a minor in it can be part of that as well. And how we would require, like what extra class activities would be added to your 8-semester requirement of ROTC, obviously to be determined, but we're going to do that. Once that occurs, there will be certain certificates that we could issue to third-party entities. Like right now, the Center for Leadership and Ethics has bid at the DEA's request to do some leadership development training for DEA senior agents, and so we have submitted a proposal for that, which would be an accreditation aspect, but also it's a good cash stream if you can get either repetitive work or expand that by word of mouth as to the benefit of your program by somebody else's. And so there is that. And then, finally, it would metastasize, I believe, into a full-blown kind of Kennedy School of Leadership, so Marshall School of Leadership, and you would offer advanced degrees, certificates, online courses, as well as a part of your 4-year program to be I graduated with a military leadership degree, or just a plain leadership degree. What we call it, I'm less concerned about than how we structure it. And so we're looking at that right now. Our Dave Gray is working with the dean to figure out how we do, not if we're going to do it, but how we're going to do it. And then we'll start the SHEV accreditation process. I've got a meeting next week, I believe, with General Jumper and SHEV to talk about that, as well as one other possibility for an advanced degree within a 4-year time frame for VMI. So this is all part of making us broadening the appeal, so to speak, to the Commonwealth.
Great, thank you.
The final one is Enrollment Management and Student Access Initiative. This is in part an ongoing initiative that we have received some grant funding from the state for. That grant ends at the end of this year, at the end of fiscal year 27. It's likely that it will be renewed in some form, but we do want to go on the record with the state that this is a high priority initiative for us. And if the funding were to be reduced or eliminated, it's something we would individually as an institution like to come back and aggressively pursue. The current grant program is allowed for all schools to apply and put your proposals together. We've been very, very successful in our securing of the first few rounds of grant funding. The program is starting to shift and change. It's beginning to get a little more formalized, but it's proved to be a very, very effective program because it gave us dollars and gave us great latitude to use those dollars to help Pell students. And so we want to continue to, it's just part of the overall enrollment strategy and recruitment, be able to secure and bring in the low-income or Pell students and provide for their opportunity to come in. As you know, VMI's graduation rates for Pell students nearly mirrors that of non-Pell students. It's a little bit behind. Some years it's been ahead, but they're very, very close, which speaks volumes to the overall academic program of our faculty. They can bring in any cadet, any background, whatever it is, and work them towards graduation, notwithstanding the things that we know about lower income Pell students on a general basis about access to educational opportunities and just the overall propensity for success. There's been demonstrated deficiencies there. We've been able to buck that largely, but what we're trying to do is gather more Pell students into our enrollment. Obviously, it takes dollars for that to occur because that requires a significant amount of financial aid to bring a Pell student in. And so we want to strengthen that enrollment, the recruiting operations, retention initiatives, and student support systems that get after our overall financial aid program as well as the Pell initiative. We have a number of initiatives that we've got underway. A software tool that's helping us track the overall performance of a cadet working their way through, where we can get data and insights earlier in the process before they get into the academic quicksand, as the commandant likes to describe it. So very early on, after that first set of quarter grades, all that stuff's pushed in the system, and rather than having to manually plug and chug that and go and try and find it, we've already got this software coming along this fall that will start to identify that for all students. It's elements like that we really want to get after to support our overall Pell Initiative program. And those that have been on the board for some time know that VMI has been among the lowest of having Pell enrollment, and we've been working very aggressively and had some very, very good trends moving in a positive direction, bringing more Pell students in. We want to continue to sustain that, and this is an initiative getting after that. Are there any questions on this initiative? Well, members of the board, this outlines the set of operational requests. I do want to highlight that we also have included our requests for capital. We currently are waiting to see where we end up on the CLE Phase 2 project. If the CLE Phase 2 project is not in this budget when it comes out, then that will become the capital priority. If it is in the budget when it comes out, then we will move to our 3 projects that are in the planning phase and make requests for those to move to the construction phase. And that would be specifically the renovations to the admissions and financial aid offices, 307, 309 Letcher. It will move from planning to construction phase funding for the expansion of Hinty Hall, which is the physical plant building and just an overall infrastructure improvements. And then a 3rd project, which is also in planning, which is the Newmarket Battlefield State Historical Park Hall of Valor modernization, moving that from planning to construction. So we'll see where the budget goes and determining how we want to move on capital, depending on what's in the budget. But I think that outlays the 2 forks in the road that we'll head down relative to capital. This would represent what we commonly call our 5x8 card. We line all this up in really simple terms with some numbers, and one side has capital, the other side has operational, and we begin to socialize that with the Secretary of Education, Secretary of Finance, the governor, and the governor's staff, working that in the fall, trying to get that into the governor's budget. We get a lot of feedback as we meet with people. They'll be able to signal to us, hey, that one's really exciting. We're seeing that lines up with something that Chev's doing, or something the governor's doing, or something that's important to a certain legislator. And we'll cue in on that. And sometimes you get a signal that, like, look, that one's not going to be very, very strong this time around. And so we'll jockey and shift those around as we get into fall with this 5x8 card and just continue to refine and refine and refine that. By the time we get to the session, hopefully what we've asked for is in the governor's budget. What's not, whatever's left over, then we go and work those pieces with the General Assembly, or just play offense and try and hold on, play defense and try and hold on to what's in the budget. So there's just a longer longitudinal strategy, the timeline of where this goes from this today to the submittal to then working things with the governor's staff, then on to the legislature, and then next year about this time, we'll be knowing a lot more about all these things we're talking about. It'll be fun for all of us to sit back and say, gosh, look at that. That came through. Hopefully all of it.
Well, thanks very much, Dallas. Based on that, and as I listen to that, it strikes me that it's not really necessary or useful to say, okay, or to identify what we think is the number one priority or number five priority, right? These are the real question is, are these five things the priorities that the board thinks, and executive committee more specifically thinks ought to go forward as that amendment to the odd number year 6-year plan? Is that fair? Having said that, then, if you could only have two of these things, I'll put you on the spot. If you could only have two of these five, which two would you want?
Sir, I'll take the first crack at it. You can play defense on that. I think the forging fit leaders and the experiential learning are probably the two highest priorities.
Yeah, I might go forging fit leaders would be my number one, but then it's a tough call between experiential education or the 21st century classroom initiative for our professors. So those are really kind of almost intertwined. I mean, we've got to deliver the best product possible in the best possible way to our students, and I think that probably leans into that. But I can't deny that the experiential leadership part of that is key as well. So I think what you see from these five is there's a lot of nesting and conceptual nesting between what we're asking for and where we're going in our strategic plan, which was deliberate. And so if obviously we'll prioritize these, and then if somebody says, hey, you get two, well, hey, get the first two. But right now we're still not in that phase of deciding what's one and what's five. A lot of that will be determined by resources available, like, hey, I'd like to fund that, but that's too much money. So we'll go 1 and 3. 2, you're going to have to. So that'll kind of, as we discuss this with the state from now until the December, that will become more apparent, I believe, and those decisions will be informed based on touch points with the governor, the Secretary of Education, Secretary of Finance, so that we have a program that is based in reality of what we believe we can get in the budget. And then you work hard to get it in the budget. It's just like what we used to do in Ledge Affairs for the service. You go through a POM process, it takes 2 years, and then there's certain things you got in and certain things didn't make it in. Well, those that didn't make it in are tops of your Ledge Affairs. Like, you go ask the General Assembly and the Senate for stuff that didn't make it into the budget. And that's a harder row to hoe sometimes, especially when the same party controls both the State House and the General Assembly and the Senate. So, but it doesn't mean you don't try. So you make your case. I don't know if that's helpful, Colonel Dick, or not.
No, I think it is. Basically, again, it comes down to that we think these are the five things that we go forward at this point in time. And then we adjust fire as necessary from there. I'd like to turn to the members of the executive committee, though, and now and ask for their thoughts and comments on what we just heard. Damon, Lester, Ernie, speak up. What you think?
Damon here. Go ahead, Damon.
I'm sorry. Thanks, Eddie. No, I concur with the presentation here. These five are, I think either they can rearrange themselves. Five could be, well, the 4 could be number 2 or 5 number 1. But I think going in with the perspective of maybe we get three of the five, but at the same time going for all what the what legislature is going to allow us to what gets into the budget, and then we can adjust from there. So thank you for your reports.
Ernie? Thanks, Damon.
I support all five. Obviously, the priority is going to sort itself out. I think, the comments that we've all had made, the experiential learning stands out because that's part of the QEP and that's all part of the accreditation process. So that's got a special badge pinned onto it. And then obviously the physical fitness piece, which the Commandant's been talking about and incrementally working towards for the last couple of years. But I 100% get what the soup's saying too, that the modernized classroom, if I could call it that, is symbiotic to both of those. And so, it's kind of hard to string out which is more important than the other. And I understand the process, and we'll get a little better clarity on what we can get and what we have to keep pushing for. And then, maybe there are opportunities arise for alternative sources. But in the main, I think these are the right five priorities. And I'm excited to see what sort of feedback we get from the legislature and the OP6 as we go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Ernie. And it's kind of like assessing a military staff, right? All the staff officers are equals, but some are more equal than others, and I go to the ops officer to be more equal than others. But here at this point in time, it does strike me that I concur with you, Damon and Ernie. I haven't spoken so far, that these things seem to be on target, at least at this point, and the negotiation and discussion phase will sort itself out. Lester, brilliant insight that you want to lay on us here?
No more than what everybody else says. Like I said, it'll sort itself out. I know they've picked through it, and like I say, prioritize, and there's always a want list and a need list. So that list usually kind of, like you say, works itself out.
Thank you, Lester, Ernie, and Damon. And I still don't see Don Hall. Is there? Having said that, then, and heard from the executive committee, I don't know that a actual motion is in order at this time to approve it at this point, because we really need to see the numbers that would, I think, give us that real clarity on what the priorities are and the likelihood of success. So, but I think the sense is clearly that the executive committee believes that these five priorities make sense, they're appropriate, they're on target. Again, at this point, all right? Is that what you need, General Furness, General Clark? Anything else?
That's what we need. I think from here, then we can take these all a step further and really start working all the details. But it's very, very helpful, and I appreciate the time the executive committee coming together to hear this, think about it, and just give us just a general thumbs up that we're heading the right direction. And this is reflective of what the board sees as the priorities for the Institute. So thank you very, very much for the time. It's very, very helpful to us.
Well, you all did all the heavy lifting. We just sat back and opined, but thank you for your kind words, Dallas. The other thing, of course, I'd say is that when you do put the numbers on it and we get more clarity, it will flow through the Audit, Finance, and Planning Committee, right, to the full board for its review. That happens down the line in the fall.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, having taken care of that, then the 6-year plan, assuming there's nothing else there to be addressed in the 6-year plan. Good.
Correct.
Other business, if necessary. The only other business item that I would raise at this point is HB 1377 and the necessity of a report that this is the law that is slated currently to go into effect as of 1 July, that tasks the as amended by the governor, by the way, that tasks the Board of Visitors to conduct a study and provide a report to the governor and the General Assembly on certain things that VMI has been wrestling with in recent years. And so my initial take on that is we'll constitute develop appoint an ad hoc working group to take a look at that. I've got a couple questions I want to have answered before we take a huge step on this, not the least of which is that we have reinitiated at the governor's request quarterly reports on in response to the Barnes and Thornburg study. And that report, I should say. So one of my questions is, how does this report mesh with those requirements and where that goes out so that we can focus our efforts and not duplicate, overlap, or contradict ourselves on this report. So I want to find out a little bit more about that and the vision for that. But that's the way I see it at this point. I'd ask Ernie, Lester, Damon, if you have any thoughts on that issue. Ernie?
I'll go first. I would say that your concern about making sure that we're not duplicating or sending mixed messages with regard to the requirements from the Barnes and Thornburg reporting is spot on. My sense is there's a lot of similarity to both, and I think the question that we have to understand in order to be able to answer it is, so what's different in HB 1377 from Barnes and Thornburg? Are they effectively identical? And then how can we communicate substantive responses in a way that's acceptable to the governor and the legislature? And if we're left to guess, we can figure it out. But if there's a way we can get something like an authoritative answer, that would be better, just I think for everybody's understanding and expectation. So I think I've just restated the problem.
No, much clearer than I did. Damon or Lester?
No, Mike, I concur with what your assessment was. So thank you.
Sir.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you. That's the only other thing I had.
May I ask a quick question?
Nancy? Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know why my camera is not working today. I apologize. This is jumping back to the Athletic on Winning Symposium starting June 3rd. So I'm just curious, were they able to include the club coaches? I know originally it was just the athletic coaches and staff, and some discussion was why not invite our club folks to join in? Do we know if that happened?
It did happen, and they were at the warm start meeting we had a couple days ago. This is Tuesday, so last week, like Friday of last week, we did a warm start to the conference with all the coaches. It was about a half-day long session, and they were included, and they were there.
Thank you.
Not all of them were there, but a majority were.
Well, I think half the battle is inviting them and letting them know they're part of the team. So
Yep, they were
thank
invited.
you.
Thanks, Nancy. So anything else from the executive committee members you want to address now? General Clark, General Furness, anything else? That's it?
I'm good, sir.
All right, then I think this concludes this meeting. We'll adjourn. We'll end this meeting of the executive committee and follow up and await with bated breath the numbers attached to those initiatives. All right. That's it. Thank you all very much for your participation in today. Catch you later. Out here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.